There are many these days who have become disenfranchised with religion, and respectfully, I completely get it. Even in Christianity, I won't go into the politics of our day. And there are a lot of questions about the interactions between those in the political sphere, specifically the quote-unquote Christian sphere of influence in the current administration. There's a lot of activity, a lot of shifting and changes happening right now that I won't go into. Many of you are already aware, so I don't need to invest time in that. But in the midst of all of that, sometimes the truth of God and who Jesus is and this very thing that he talked about, the kingdom, can get lost. And the religion or the Christianity that many of us may have been familiar with now seems irrelevant. And in some cases, it will seem irrelevant because the Christianity in many ways, in some ways, that was handed down to us in the Western world was full of a lot of religiosity, a lot of man-made tradition. And these are traditions that weren't necessarily bad in and of themselves. Sometimes they came in the form of a song or a particular way of worshiping or practicing our worship. And it provided some point of reference to realize that there is a God. But I submit to you, the problem was that many would get so caught up in the ritual and the tradition and not the God who they say was the object of the ritual and the tradition. These were the very kind of people that Jesus dealt with in Jesus' day. These were people who claimed to be religious, and we've talked about them before, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the scribes. They were well regarded as those who were pious and religious, and they had a sense of understanding that God was real. They had a sense of, dare I say, reverence for God, but at the same time, they really didn't know him, not to the degree that Jesus did. And it's ironic because though they were religious and though they were respected as being pious, these very people were the ones that gave Jesus the most trouble. Makes you wonder, is it possible that the religion that we practice doesn't help us actually to know the God who is real? Is it possible that the religion that we're familiar with, or the religiosity that we're familiar with, doesn't actually draw us closer to God, but actually keeps us at a distance? What if many of the religious traditions that we're familiar with are actually the traditions of men, but aren't necessarily connected to what God has ordained for us? And if I might say something on a personal note, these are some of the questions that I pondered in my own spiritual journey over the years, and they've caused me to have a greater appreciation for Christ himself, for this understanding of the kingdom, and for the things of God. Some might say that these questions will draw one away from God, but I find quite the contrary. They have drawn me closer to him.